Welcome to the Artwork of You, the podcast where your life is the canvas and you are the masterpiece. I'm your host, Lori Gouhin, and together we'll explore creativity, self-awareness, mindset, goal strategy, and the importance of accountability so that you can paint your life's portrait with confidence and ease. Remember, in the gallery of life, you're not just a spectator, you are the art. So let's grab our brushes and start creating the masterpiece that is you. Hello, my friends. I am so glad that you are here with me today because today I want to talk about being in the middle. And what I mean by that is that in between stage where you're not quite who you used to be, but you're not quite fully who you're becoming either. And I had a dream recently, the other day, that made me think about this because the dream stayed with me all day. And I won't share the whole thing, but again, it just kind of stayed with me. And in the dream, I was trying to reach an unfamiliar place and I was trying to find my way, and I was walking through hallways and staircases and outside and turns that just kept changing constantly. And every time I thought I was close, the path shifted again. And when I woke up, I was thinking about it. And again, as I said, it stayed with me the whole day. And I realized that's exactly what it feels like when you're in transition, when the old version of you is kind of fading away and the new version hasn't fully taken shape yet. And it can be uncomfortable and confusing, even when you know it's growth. So that's what I want to talk about today. What it feels like to be in that space between two different versions of yourself, how you know when you're there, and how to keep moving forward when everything around you feels unfamiliar. It can be a strange place to be in because you know something is shifting, but you can't fully explain it. It's like suddenly, or maybe sometimes subtly, you look around at your life and what used to fit, like your routines, your conversations, your goals, clearly don't fit anymore. And that in between space can be uncomfortable because it asks you to live without clear answers. You feel the pull of something new, but you can't quite see what it is. It's like the old version of you is still hanging around doing what it's always done, but it no longer feels right. It's not that anything has necessarily gone wrong, it just feels off. Almost, not to be cliche, but like you've outgrown an old version of yourself, but you're still living it because it's familiar. And what's tricky about this is that you can't rush your way through it. You can't fast forward to the clarity part. This is the stage, I would say, where most people get frustrated or they try to fix it, when really there's nothing to fix. You're just in the middle of becoming something new. And I think a lot of people mistake this phase for being stuck, when in reality, it's where a lot of unseen progress happens. So it's not stuckness, it's more like space between versions of yourself that haven't fully traded places yet. It's your inner world rearranging to make room for what's next. Like you're recalibrating emotionally, mentally, even energetically, and your external world just hasn't caught up yet. So if you're in that place where you feel life kind of feels maybe sterile or unfamiliar, where you can't quite connect to your old rhythm, but the new one hasn't formed yet, again, that is not failure, that's transition. And from my experience, that's where growth is quietly rearranging things behind the scenes. And if you can stay with it, if you can resist the urge to fill that space too quickly, something starts to settle. And you realize you're not lost, you're just in motion, even if you can't quite see where you're going yet. Sometimes you don't even realize you're between versions of yourself until you start noticing little shifts and subtle changes that don't make sense at first. You might find yourself pulling away from certain people or situations, not because anything happened, but because something feels maybe complete or maybe no longer aligned or needed. Or you might look around at your life, like your routines and your work and even your surroundings, and feel just a faint disconnect, like you're watching yourself live a version of your life that's no longer who you are. The things that once motivated you don't quite have the same effect anymore. And maybe you outgrow conversations that used to energize you, or maybe it's something like you're craving quiet more than stimulation. And you start asking different questions of yourself as well as others. That's when I would say that you know you're in the middle. Again, it's not chaos, it's your inner landscape shifting before your mind can catch up. There's no obvious turning point. You just start to feel that pull towards something that feels more like you. And what's interesting is that this middle space can mirror your physical world too. Sometimes you'll notice it through your environment. Maybe your home suddenly feels uninspiring, or you want to rearrange everything, but you're not sure of exactly what you want. I actually just rearranged my whole studio a few days ago. I think it was the day after this stream, without even planning to. I just planned on cleaning it. But when I got in there, I just knew it needed to feel different. And that's the thing. These external shifts are often reflections of what's happening internally. It's easy to think something's wrong when that happens, but often it's the best sign that something's right because it means you're not forcing yourself to be something you're not anymore. That being said, I will also say that one of the hardest parts about being in between two versions of yourself is that the old version doesn't just disappear, right? It keeps trying to pull you back. It's familiar, it knows how things work, it knows the rules and the expectations and your rhythms. So even when you've outgrown it, part of you still feels tempted to go back because it's easier than stepping into something undefined. And you'll catch yourself thinking old thoughts or slipping into old habits, saying yes to things that don't align with you anymore, not because you want to, but because it feels safe. And that's your mind trying to keep things predictable. The new version of you doesn't have a pattern yet, so it asks for more trust. And that can feel really uncomfortable when you're used to knowing what comes next. And again, I think that's where a lot of people stop, right at the edge between what's known and what's next. And they talk themselves out of the change because it doesn't have any proof attached to it. But as you know, growth rarely announces itself with proof. You usually have to move first before you feel ready, and then let the evidence build afterward. That's the call of the new version. It shows up as a small nudge. It kind of says, go this way. Even if you can't explain it yet, you know deep down it's the direction you're meant to go. And so, how do you move through this middle space without rushing it or losing yourself in it? For me, it starts with letting it be what it is. You don't have to label it as a setback or call it a failure. Sometimes it's just a simple pause, and that pause has purpose. So much power in the pause. We talk about that a lot. And you can start by noticing what actually feels right. Not necessarily in a big life changing way or anything like that, but in the small things. What do you want to do more of right now? What do you want to do less of? What feels heavy and what feels lighter? In my opinion, those questions tell you way more than any 5-step plan ever could. You might also find that you need to adjust your environment. When I rearranged my studio the other day, I realized it wasn't just about where things were placed, it was about how I wanted to feel in this space. Sometimes clarity comes from changing what's around you so that it matches what's changing inside of you. It's also okay not to have the full vision yet. You don't need to know where everything is leading. You don't need to force an answer. You just need to pay attention long enough for the answer to find you. And maybe most importantly, stop measuring progress by what's visible, because the new version of you is forming in subtle ways through your thoughts, your choices, and your willingness to sit with the unknown instead of filling it up with all kinds of things. The middle isn't a sign, again, that something is wrong for not having it all figured out. It's preparation. And at some point, something shifts and you stop trying to make sense of it all and just start living from the new place, even if it's still taking shape. And there will be less analyzing, less looking back. You just notice that you're responding differently. And you realize the old version of you isn't something to reject. It served its purpose, it got you here. It held what you needed until you were ready for more. And also, the new version isn't a stranger either. It's the part of you that's been with you all along, waiting for you to catch up. When that happens, you take what's still true and then you let the rest fade away. And you stop needing everything to make sense and just start trusting what feels aligned. That's integration. It's when the transition starts to move again and you're not chasing after clarity, you're actually living it. Again, you begin making choices from the person you're becoming instead of reacting from who you used to be. It'll show up in how you carry yourself, how you make decisions, and how you treat the present moment, not as something to get through, How many people do you know that say that? I'm just trying to get through the day. So, no, you won't be treating it as something you need to get through, but as something to build from. That's how you know you've crossed over, not because your life looks different yet, but because you do. So, if you're in that space between two versions of yourself right now, just remember nothing has gone wrong. You're not behind, you're just in the middle. This is where self trust is built. Not when everything is clear and easy, but when you can't see the full picture yet and you still keep showing up anyway. You just have to stay aware of what feels true, what feels done, and what feels like it's calling you forward. That awareness will change everything. And one day you'll look back and realize the in between wasn't wasted time. It was the season that built the version of you who could handle what came next. If that's where you are right now, somewhere in the middle, give yourself credit for being here. You're already moving forward, even if it doesn't look like it yet. That's a wrap for today, my friends. Thank you for sharing your time with me. And remember to show up in your life like the masterpiece you are, because you are the artwork. Please subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Have a fabulous day.